Welcome to Be Smart, the podcast about money, the podcast about highbrow money, lowbrow money, and everything in between, and how not to be an idiot with your money. Because there's a lot of that going around. I want to talk about, well, this is not a political show. It's not a political podcast. I speak Thursday mornings on the local morning show, which is a conservative show. And usually on Thursday mornings, on my way to the show, I turn on the radio and I listen to what's going on. And then I end up leaving it on that station the rest of the day. And there's Glenn Beck and Dan Bongino, and it used to be Rush, and what's that guy's name? Sebastian Gorka. So, I'll hear the whole lineup throughout the day. And it's a fairly one-sided take on things. But what I will say is that this economy that we have right now, with this inflation and these shortages, this is Biden's economy. I mean, he owns it. So he was inaugurated in January, and the inflation and the shortages started in January. So he owns it. Everybody knows all this started when he became president, not before. And if you go back in time, when Obama was president, he did inherit a mess. We were in the middle of a financial crisis. But Obama, for like the next 6 years, was blaming the economy on Trump. It was 2014. Sorry, not Trump, Bush. It was 2014, and he was still blaming the economy on Bush. And Biden can't do that. Everybody knows this all started when he became president. He owns it. Everybody knows this. People are not dumb. People know that we did not have inflation and shortages when Trump was president. Biden can't escape from this. So for the midterms are coming up. It's a year away. We're halfway there. And it's going to be a wipeout in the midterms. It's going to be, I figure, at a minimum, the Republicans pick up 30 seats in the House. Back in 2010 when Obama was president, I think the Republicans picked up like 64 seats in the House. They're going to pick up a lot of seats in the House, Now, if we are being intellectually honest, it's not all because of Biden, okay? I think Biden gets the blame for 50% of it, and I think the Fed gets the other half. This is because of actions that the Fed has taken since the pandemic started in March of 2020. But it is also because of actions that Trump took in 2020. Stimulus checks, his idea, the unemployment benefits, his idea, but Biden continued these things into his term. Now, for whatever reason, when Biden became president, inflation took off. Now, I think there's psychological reasons for that. It's hard to explain. I think there's psychological reasons for it. I went out to dinner the other night with my mom and my wife. We went to Market Common, which is this mixed-use development in the area, and there's a bunch of restaurants. So we were going to this restaurant called Trevinia, and Trevinia is a Market Common. It's an Italian place, and we get up to the front door, and there's this huge crowd of people standing outside. And I look inside the restaurant, and there's only like 2 or 3 tables occupied. The guy that's the host is like beside himself. And he's like, we only have 2 cooks. We only have 2 servers. Give me your phone number. I'll text you when a table gets ready. We just went to another restaurant, and like an hour later, they didn't have a table ready. Like, it's a goat rodeo. It's a disaster. Okay. So I don't need to tell you my stories about shortages because they are everywhere. Everyone has stories about shortages. I can't get cat food. Okay, I have a bunch of cats. As you know, I have 6 cats. I can't get cat food out of a store, right? I go to the grocery store, there's no cat food. I got to order it online. Toilet paper is gone again. Cleaning supplies are disappearing. It's bad. A healthy economy is not plagued with shortages and dysfunction. Now, Biden told the ports in LA Long Beach to operate 24/7. Okay. They already were, and besides, the longshoremen are like the most powerful union in the country. Like, if they want to go home, they're going to go home. The administration is trying to fix this, but everything they do to fix it is going to make it worse. So, I was on the radio this morning, and the host, Liz, she asked me, she says, how do you make this better? And I said, you raise interest rates. You want to make this better, you raise interest rates a lot, and you cause a recession. That will end the inflation. That will end the shortages. And people say, no, we can't do that. We can't raise rates. We can't cause a recession, put people out of work. You asked how we could fix this. That's how we fix it. We fix it by raising interest rates. This is what we did in 1979 when Paul Volcker was Fed chair. You have to crush the inflationary psychology. You have to cause a recession on purpose, which is kind of insane. That's the one time in history that we did that. We caused a recession on purpose, which for people at the Fed and in the Biden administration, that's the worst thing possible. And the Fed is supposed to be independent. So let's just say we had a different Fed. Let's say we had a bunch of hawkish Fed governors and they decided to raise rates and crush the inflation and cause a recession. I mean, what would Biden do? It would be, I can't even describe. It would be insane. So this is the worst thing imaginable for the people at the Fed. Well, here's what's going to happen. The inflation is going to go higher and higher to the point where people would rather have the unemployment. That's the point at which we are going to do something about this. When inflation gets high enough that people are so miserable that they'll say, we'll do anything. We'll do anything to end this inflation. Okay, then it's time to raise interest rates, cause a recession, and the inflation is gone. But how high does inflation have to go before people panic? I'm guessing between 20 and 30%. You're like, what? We're going to get 20 to 30% inflation? I mean, let me put it this way. When it gets to 10, we're not going to do anything about it. When it gets to 15, we're not going to do anything about it. It has to be really bad. Okay, we have to create a lot of economic misery before the Fed or the government decides to do something about it. And the amazing thing about this inflation is that it happened so fast, right? Started in January. This is October. It's been 9 months. Like, that's, in economic terms, it happened very fast. But there is historical precedent for that. After World War II, inflation went from basically 0 to 15% in 2 years. Inflation can happen fast. And people are just getting used to this idea of going to the store and they're out of stuff. And they say, oh, well, I'll go to another store. And they learn to cope and they learn to survive, and people are adaptable. But if you think back just last year, just 12 months ago, when you went to the store, they had everything. They had as many goods as you wanted of all different varieties of stuff, So our economy is broken. It is absolutely broken, and it's going to get worse. And we might get to the point, I wrote about this in the newsletter about a month ago. We might get to the point where people can't get food. I don't mean to be like, one of these doomsday prepper people, but we might get to the point where grocery stores have been completely ransacked. They're just out of everything. Because here's how this works. They run out of this, they run out of that, they run out of something else. And eventually you go into the grocery store and it's like half empty, and you're like, I gotta buy everything. I gotta buy as much as I can before they run out. And it's kind of like a run on the bank. It's a run on the grocery store, and they run out of all different kinds of stuff, and then you're stuck. That could happen. So what I was telling people this was a month ago. I said, go shopping, do multiple shopping trips, spend a couple $1,000 on groceries, fill up your pantry, fill up your freezer in the garage, and just be stocked up. And if I'm wrong, if this doesn't happen, there's no cost to it. There's no cost. It's free insurance. Go to the store, go shopping. And it's what we talk about, these supply chain disruptions. It sounds so academic. It's like a very academic term, supply chain disruptions. It's like an asteroid hit the earth and shit happened, like supply chain disruptions. They just happened exogenously. At the center of these supply chain disruptions, my belief is what caused this are the labor shortages, and we created the labor shortages. This is a man-made economic disaster. We created the labor shortages by giving out PPP loans, giving out stimulus checks, giving out the enhanced unemployment benefits, and providing a powerful disincentive for people not to work. And you combine that with the fact that it's the pandemic and people were on lockdown and they had to stay home, and they said, well, I kind of like staying home. Maybe I'm just going to do this forever. I mean, now I'm getting paid to do it, so I'll just stay home, People never figured this out. They did not figure it out in the financial crisis, right? The financial crisis was in 2008, 2009, 2010. It's like 2010, it's 2 years later, and we're still paying unemployment benefits, and the unemployment rate is like 7 or 8%, and people are like, gosh, why isn't the unemployment rate coming down? And I'm like, you dummies, you're paying people not to work. And we do this over and over and over again. Nobody has the balls to say, just, you know what? People can lose their jobs. They will find jobs. It will be fine. People have an incentive to find jobs when they run out of money. There's been a lot of research done on unemployment benefits. People will get benefits for like 3 months, 6 months, whatever, and they generally don't find a job until right before the benefits are about to run out. Just human nature. It's human nature. Some people just don't understand human nature. So what are you going to do with this information? This information that I'm giving you, that inflation is here to stay and shortages are here to stay. Inflation is going up. What are you going to do with this information? Bend over. I mean, that's what you're going to do. Here's the problem. If you're rich, there's some things you can do. You don't want to hold cash. You want to hold assets. You want to hold stocks. You want to hold gold, commodities, real estate, houses, land, farmland. Inflation affects the price of goods, but it also affects the price of assets. And when you own assets, you are theoretically keeping up with inflation, but not everybody can afford stocks, gold, commodities, real estate, houses, and land. Then what do? Bend over. Inflation hits the poor the hardest. Always, because they don't have the means to protect themselves from rising prices. And the middle class has a limited means to protect themselves from rising prices. Rich people don't care. They don't feel it at all. I don't care at all. Like I'm positively exposed to inflation. I'm rooting for inflation. If inflation goes up, I make money. Okay. Inflation hurts the poorest people among us. The crazy thing is that the Fed claims to be helping out the poor when they lower interest rates to zero and do quantitative easing. They think they're helping out the poor, which is nuts. It's ass backwards. So I don't know what to tell you. I used to follow this guy on Twitter. This was like 10 years ago. And he had this term called Smidiots. And Smidiots is a portmanteau. It's smart idiot. It's somebody who's so smart that they're an idiot. That's what the Fed is. They're Smidiots. I don't know what it is about the culture of that place. It's like you get a job there as an economist or a Fed official or whatever, and you walk in and they give you lobotomy and they start believing this stuff like inflation is good for poor people. It's nuts. Absolutely nuts. And we use the Fed, by the way, this is just the modern Fed. You go back 20 years with the Fed, it was a completely different institution. They were very vigilant about inflation. They would do surprise rate hikes. Like you would just walk into work one morning and the Fed will have hiked rates 50 basis points. The market's crashing. People are freaking out. And it was because some manufacturing survey came in hot or PPI was a 10th higher or something like that. But they were very vigilant about inflation. The whole philosophy of the Fed has changed. Okay. So now here they are. They're printing $120 billion a month to buy bonds. Interest rates are zero. So they're doing these asset purchases, and we're finally getting around to tapering asset purchases. Maybe in November, maybe in December. But it's too late. It's too late. The horses are already out of the barn. If you're at the Fed, you have to be thinking way ahead. And they're not proactive, they're reactive. By the time they get around to hiking interest rates, it'll be time to cut interest rates. The economy is growing. We're not in recession, but growth is slowing, you know. When was the last time you heard the term laissez-faire? I used to hear that like in high school, laissez-faire in history class. Laissez-faire means leave it alone. And the economy does the best when you leave it alone. Just leave it alone. It'll work itself out. You know, we intervened in the economy during the pandemic. And what happened was it created huge distortions in the economy. And we are going to be dealing with these distortions for years into the future. And we sparked off an inflationary psychology, which is going to last for decades. By the way, did you see that Social Security is raising their benefits by 5.9% this year? Social Security benefits are going up by 5.9%. That's the most in 40 years. And so this is reflexivity, okay? It's a self-reinforcing cycle. Inflation goes up, so we give out more benefits, so they buy more stuff, which makes inflation go up, so we give out more benefits. We are now in the inflationary cycle. So I don't know if this has been insightful, but I just wanted to complain about all the stupidity out there. You know, it's all fun and games until you go to the store and there's no food. See you next time on Be Smart. I'm Jared Dillian.